One of Syria's strongest rebel groups, Al-Nusra Front, confirms it's cut ties with Al-Qaeda. A change of name or a change of ideology? How will it affect the situation on the ground? How will it change how Nusra is viewed outside Syria? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Sami Zeidan. Al-Nusra Front is one of the largest and most effective rebel groups in Syria, controlling territory in the north, west and south of the country. It's always maintained its priority is getting rid of Bashar al-Assad, but it was, until now, al-Qaeda's affiliate in Syria. That has made it a target of both Russia and, more recently, the US. Now the group has decided to go it alone, cutting its ties with Al-Qaeda in what appears to be an amicable split. A move which has lots of implications for the armed opposition in Syria and the way Nusra fighters are viewed abroad. Lots for us to discuss, but first Mohammed Jamjoon sets things up.
Abu Muhammad al-Jolani announcing that the armed Syrian opposition group has now officially split from Al-Qaeda. Al-Nusra first appeared months after the uprising against Syria's president began. While rumors of the announcement had been circulating for days, on Thursday, Al-Jolani appeared in vision for the first time to reveal that his group's name has also been changed to Jabhat Fath al-Sham, or the Front for the Liberation of al-Sham.
ويسعى هذا التشكيل الجديد لتحقيق الأهداف التالية. أولاً العمل على إقامة دين الله عز وجل وتحكيم شرعه وتحقيق العدل بين الناس كل الناس. ثانياً العمل على التوحد مع الفصائل لرص صف المجاهدين ولنتمكن من تحرير أرض الشام من حكم الطواغيت.
The big question now, how will this impact the fighting on the ground? The Americans say the group remains a legitimate target for U.S. and Russian warplanes.
Since this announcement has been made, we certainly see no indication that would give us reason to change the designation of this group. Again, you judge an organization like this on their goals, their ideology, their objectives.
With bombs still raining down on Aleppo, it seems the only thing people there have a steady supply of is violence.
We came here to buy vegetables and rice because they told us the siege is going to get worse, and then rockets hit. They started to come and take people from under the rubble. They took people out of that house that were killed, and people from this house over here that were killed.
This child, badly burned, managed to survive an airstrike. But will he and others be able to live through the siege? These days, the fuel tanks are as empty as the markets are deserted.
Syria's army, which is increasingly encircling Aleppo, says it has dropped leaflets into the city informing residents that it has secured safe passage and accommodation for those who want to flee. Syria's government also says it will pardon any opposition fighters who turn in their weapons. But people we've spoken with there say they simply don't trust the government or its assurances.
Opposition activists say regime helicopters have dropped a small amount of food and sweets in different parts of Aleppo. But with Syrian forces in control of the only road into the city, concern is growing for hundreds of thousands of people. Aid agencies worry not only that food could run out within a matter of weeks, but that Syria's government may try to starve opposition-controlled areas into surrendering, which is why fears of a looming humanitarian catastrophe are growing. Mohammed Jamjoon, Al Jazeera, in Gaziantep, on the Turkish-Syrian border.
All right, let's bring our guests into the show now. We have in Amman Hassan Abu Haniyeh, an expert on Islamic movements. In London, Hayed, a Syrian researcher on conflict and Islamic movements. And in Abu Dhabi via Skype, Monzer Akbik, a Syrian opposition figure and former member of the Syrian National Coalition. Welcome to you all. If I could start with Hayed, has Nusra, or Jabhat al-Fath as it's now called, has it changed its ideology? How deep is this rebranding?
For many Syrians that I spoke to before the announcement and even after, and even groups and armed groups inside Syria. I spoke to many of them. All of them, they think that this is just it's not a strategic, it's a tactical move. It's not a change in the strategy of Jabhat al-Nusra for many reasons. One of them is because this happened with the blessing of al-Qaeda. Al-Julani, his appearance in the statement just replicates the appearance of a well-known picture for Osama bin Laden. The wordings, he didn't mention Syria once. He didn't say that we are here to fight for the freedom of the people, and the people have the right to decide what they want to do later on. They come with clear agenda for what they want to do now and later on. And the third one is that they didn't really change even their strategies or policies or the goals they're calling for. They're calling for an Islamic state, but under a different title.
Is there any kind of practical change if it's saying it's cutting its ties with Al-Qaeda right now, in terms of how it operates and who gives the orders? I mean, to what extent were people like Ayman al-Zawahiri or his lieutenants in, if we can call them Al-Qaeda Global, involved in the day-to-day running of al-Nusra?
For many people, including myself, it's unclear what kind of involvement those figures and leaders have in the day-to-day business that Jabhat al-Nusra is doing inside Syria. But I think what we can at least predict is that all the Al-Qaeda figures who were and still part of Al-Nusra, or the new title for Jabhat al-Nusra, is they're still inside Syria and they're still active in their role, in the leadership role within the group. So I would assume that they will still have big contribution to the day-to-day work that Jabhat al-Nusra, or the new title, whatever the title is, they're trying to achieve.
Well, Monzer, as a person who's part of the Syrian opposition, you've been a member of the Syrian National Coalition before. When you look at the Syrian opposition situation right now, why do you think al-Nusra is announcing this and making this step now?
It's obviously for, but they are under pressure first, since years now, that they have announced before that they are part of Al-Qaeda, which is the international jihad. Therefore, they are the enemies of the whole international community. And basically, they were the black hole of the Syrian revolution. They undermined the people, the Syrian people struggle for freedom and democracy, and they are actually fighting for something totally different than that. So there were a lot of pressure on them to do that, but they didn't do it for the past years. Now, what they have done yesterday, it seems to many people it's too little, too late. Too little because they are still in the same announcement saying that their leaders are bin Laden and al-Zawahiri, which are the leaders of Al-Qaeda. So these people are remaining in Al-Qaeda, so even if they change their name. And too late because there is already a Security Council resolution saying that this is a terrorist organization and it is excluded from the cessation of hostilities.
But they did say that they have no affiliation for any outside group or figures. While they obviously had some respect for the names you mentioned, they didn't say that those will remain their operational and tactical leaders in any way. And they claim that from now on they'll have no affiliation to any outside group. Does that represent any change or difference for what they're now calling themselves?
Yeah, people are skeptical whether the Syrian activists and the Syrian opposition, as well as the international community, that this is a trick. This is not, they are changing their name. They just want to avoid the bombing. Now there is an agreement between the United States and Russia that al-Nusra is a legitimate target and that anybody can bomb al-Nusra locations. Although me personally, I don't agree that bombing from skies will actually do any good, because there are always collateral damages, and these people are in between civilians and also in between the moderate opposition. So there are always damages that are not useful for this bombing. This kind of people need to be eradicated or removed from Syria in a different way.
All right, let's bring Hassan into the discussion. Listening to our other guests there, not a lot of confidence that this means a change in ideology or strategy or perhaps even leadership figures. What about tactics? Do you see or expect we'll see any kind of change in terms of tactics? Is the fact that we saw Mohammed al-Jolani for the first time appearing very openly any kind of indication of an appetite for a new sort of open approach to the Syrian people, shall we say?
Undoubtedly, I think that Jabhat al-Nusra has made a sort of a new tactic, and this tactic might be a future strategy. The reference for al-Nusra is the same reference for al-Qaeda, and the change in names doesn't mean a lot. It's only from outside, but we know since September 11, Al-Qaeda is now a system that has no central department or headquarters in Afghanistan or Pakistan or whoever. We have branches in Syria, in the Islamic Maghreb or Jazirat al-Arab or in Yemen. So this change is similar to what has been done by Al-Qaeda after the Arab Spring through supporting what's so-called Ansar al-Sharia movements that can go with the local shape without really hitting the away enemy, which is the West or Israel. What has been made by al-Jolani is to stress the commitment of Ansar al-Sharia. It's part of the commitment of Al-Qaeda, and it's clear that this change is a result of the pressures practiced on them, particularly in the field, on the ground, because Jabhat al-Nusra has lost, in a way, a sort of the support on the ground since its establishment in 2012.
Let me then, Hassan, let me jump in there then and trying to get you to narrow down when you said then two very important things. They've lost support on the ground and you expect some change of tactic. What kind of change of tactics or approach, particularly to the Syrian people, do you expect? I mean, can we expect a different softening of their approach to the Syrian people or to the people it administers or deals with? You, I'm sure, are aware of human rights reports like the Human Rights Watch organization report in 2015, which blamed the group for what it called, quote, widespread violations, targeting of civilians, kidnappings, executions. Do we expect some of that to be, to change as a result of this rebranding?
On the short run, I think Jabhat al-Nusra will get rid of the role of domination that has been adopted since controlling Idlib, the courts and the application of the rulings and the face-to-face confrontation with other groups like Hazm group or the Revolutionary of Syria of the 13th group, or applying certain harsh rules on the society. This will be changed in a way, and we will see more coordination with the factions that are close to Jabhat al-Nusra, including the headquarters of Ahrar al-Sham, and there will be new contacts and new channels with other with other factions on the ground, and it will never take unilateral decisions again. On the long run, it said, as al-Jolani has said, according to the statement of yesterday, that it seeks a state, an Islamic state, within the Sharia law and according to the Shura principle through consultation with the other factions.
Right.
There is a change in the way of dealings with the different areas under the control of Jabhat al-Nusra. There will be definitely coordination.
All right, let me bring in Monzer into the discussion. You've raised some good points which I think we want to explore in a minute, but before we get to talking about perhaps the new relationship between Al-Nusra, or Jabhat al-Fath, as it's now calling itself, and other groups. I want to continue a little bit, Monzer, on the issue of its appeal to the Syrian people. From what you've seen so far and what you've heard so far, any reason to believe that this is going to make them more appealing to the Syrian people?
I don't think so. The reason is that these people are, they have a certain ideology. This is, they're calling and they're struggling for a democratic state, a religious state, Islamic state, something like that. This is thousands of miles away from what the Syrian people want. The Syrian people, basically, they have an uprising, a revolution against Assad regime, which is a dictatorship. They wanted freedom and they wanted democracy. This is completely different than what Al-Qaeda wanted. So there are, and at the same time, also in Idlib, where Al-Nusra, they have very strong influence. They already started treating women in a, pressing women, forcing them for certain kind of dressing, and other actions they are doing to the people. So they are actually a dictator. They are same like Assad, but in a different way. They are the other side of the coin. So I don't think that they are going to be these kind of ideologies and this kind of state that they're calling for is going to be welcome by the vast majority of the Syrian people. There's no way that the Syrian people are going to welcome something like that. But at the same time, there is only a sentence that he mentioned in the announcement that they are going to basically allow all people to live equally or something like that. This is some kind of a signal that they are giving that the minorities, the people who are other than Muslims, they are just like giving some assurances that they are not going to oppress these people. But it's as I said, it is really too little because everybody knows what these people ideology are.
Okay, got it. Let's, if we can, move the discussion on a little bit to Hayed now. When you listen to that announcement by Mohammed al-Jolani...
Can I just comment on this? Because I have two points to make. The first one is regarding their popularity in Syria. I agree with what the two other colleagues said, that they lost some popularity, but this has changed in the recent time, or recently, because after the cease of hostility was interrupted, what happened is that Al-Nusra started gaining more support and more people started joining because they think that Al-Nusra can change the dynamics on the ground and then can gain military achievements against Assad. Most of those who are joining or are considering to join Al-Nusra right now, they don't think that other groups have the capacity or the efficiency that Al-Nusra has when it comes to fighting Assad. This is one issue. The other issue is that we should not forget that the position that other armed groups might have towards Al-Nusra might not change, but the position that people on the ground have might, because first of all, what Al-Nusra is trying to do here is that they say that we did our part and we distance ourselves from Al-Qaeda, but the Americans and the Russians are willing to, they want to kill you anyway, and that has nothing to do with us. And this is why I think people might become more supportive, especially also now that Aleppo is besieged.
Talking about support, then,
they need someone
Hayed,
to break the siege.
Hayed, we've already heard from Hassan, for example, that he thinks that we might see an alliance or more of an alliance emerging between Fath al-Sham, formerly al-Nusra, and some groups like Ahrar al-Sham. What about other groups? What about even the Western-backed and internationally supported groups under the umbrella of the Free Syrian Army? Do you think we might see any kind of different change or dynamic in the relationship between Nusra and the FSA?
I think at this point everyone is waiting to see how the Americans and the Russians will react to this announcement. But on a different note, what used to happen between Al-Nusra and other groups is that they will coordinate militarily and they will have joint operational rooms. And this will continue from, in my personal opinion, this will continue to be the case because the opposition groups cannot alone operate and fight Assad on different fronts. So they need al-Nusra to be part of the fight. If we are talking now about a different kind of cooperation, whether like to merge or to be part of one group, I think this is something that will not take place anytime soon, because many people are still scared of the consequences of such action. This is why that cooperation will, I think, be limited on the military level, and strategic or more complete merging will not take place anytime soon.
All right.
Just on the tactical issue, I just remember something to say here. Al-Nusra recently, they changed their membership procedures. Before, it used to be an elite group that only accepts verified people after Sharia training and after military training. Recently, they've changed that, and they're now more open to accept anyone who's willing to join them.
Right,
so
okay.
This is a tactical move that we recently noticed.
Okay, Hayed put his finger on a point there about everyone's waiting to see how the international community, particularly the West, reacts. Hassan, do you think that this announcement by Al-Nusra Front, will it change anything in how the West views Nusra? Will it even perhaps change the intensity with which they are targeted by the USA?
I don't think so on the short term, because the way of dealing, the US way of dealing or the Russia way of dealing cannot be changed quickly, because both countries consider not only al-Nusra, they consider Ahrar al-Sham, Jaish al-Islam, and most of the military Islamic factions in Syria, they are considered terrorist movement and terrorist groups. And even the States, United States, when attacked with the coalition forces in 2014, the aim was the part of Khorasan, the group of Khorasan, Mohsen al-Fadli and the Farouk al-Suri.
Okay, hang on, if I may jump in again. Sorry, Hassan, but what does that mean practically speaking? If, as I think if I understood correctly from Hayed, who were expecting the military coordination to increase or at least continue between Nusra and some of the other groups, will that make the campaign against Nusra more complicated now if they're more entangled with other Syrian armed opposition groups?
Yes, for sure, because one of the main difficulties on the ground, the operational difficulties on the ground, is that Jabhat al-Nusra has so many links and relations, and geographically also it is interacted with so many parts in Idlib and Halab, in the southern front, in Qalamun, and in most all parts you cannot differentiate between the fighters of al-Nusra and other parts. And don't forget that al-Nusra itself was part of coalitions. In front of these coalitions comes Jaish al-Fath. So targeting al-Nusra cannot help or differentiate between Nusra fighters and other fighters, and this makes the situation very
Hassan,
complicated.
we've got about 40 seconds left. I want to give it to Monzer before we go. Monzer, ultimately then, if the campaigning and the targeting of Nusra continues, someone like you, you're not very sympathetic, obviously, to these groups. You want to see the campaign continue against them. But if they're wiped out, who replaces them? Who fills the void? The regime or other Syrian opposition groups?
The other opposition groups, of course, because al-Nusra, they are, my colleague said, your guess, that they are effective in fighting, but in numbers, they are actually minority. Most of the fighters are from other groups who participated in the conference. But at the same time, the striking against Israel is really a dilemma, because they are all together. You cannot really differentiate geographically in locations between them and other people. And the Russians say that they are excluded from the cessation of hostilities agreement. They are saying that to the Russians that you are striking moderate opposition, so it's a big dilemma now, and it's really very complicated.
Okay, time will tell, I guess. We're going to have to end it there and thank our guests, Hassan Abu Haniyeh, Hayed, and Monzer Akbik. And thank you too for watching. You can see the show again anytime by visiting our website aljazeera.com. And for further discussion, head over to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on Twitter, our handle there @AJ Inside Story. From me, Sami Zeidan, and the whole team here for now is goodbye.